Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Adobe Live here at Behance. I'm joined by Tim, who deserves a medal for trying to fix my Wi-Fi, my Wi-Fi broadband craziness. Tim, how are you feeling? Are you okay?
I'm doing great. Yes, thanks. It's not like we had to change the entire setup just before we went live. Gotta keep me on my toes.
There you go. See, it's all character building, isn't it? Oh my gosh. Well, I'm really glad to be here. It's been a while, and I've been joining the streams for the last few weeks, and God, we've had some crackers. It's been so good. So it's really great to be back. And today it's a crash course on expressions. Tim, give us some more detail.
Yes, so last time we talked about the first expressions, getting to know them, how to use them in After Effects, of course. And today I thought we could make something more hands-on, like a real project, something that you can actually use and not just looking at fancy expressions all over again. So.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And everyone's assembled for you here today, Tim. Everybody has come along for the ride. So quick shout out to everybody. We've got Sean, Steve. Great to see you, Steve, down here again. Bruce. I can see you all in there. And any questions today, as you all know, if you're watching on YouTube, come over to Behance. Let us know. I'll get the questions asked. Hopefully I won't break the internet again. And we'll be good from there. So yeah. And I hope you're having a lovely day as well. And I've got to say, Tim, the weather here in the UK at the moment, I don't know if anyone can give me tips in the chat. I don't know how to dress anymore. 1 minute it's raining, the next minute it's winter, the next minute it's sunshine. It's full on summer. I've given up. So if anyone can give any tips, then please do.
Yep.
All right. I'll hand over to you to start the crash course. And hopefully, I won't crash anything.
Hopefully no crashes in the crash course. Fingers crossed. All right, then let's jump on over to After Effects. Yes.
Oh, cool.
And I think we can just move over the camera to the right side because that's hopefully where it's not distracting too much from the fun we are about to have. Right. Okay. I just need to move that, and hopefully nothing breaks. Oh, it works. Okay. Right. Let's get started. First, let's of course create a new composition. That's how all After Effects projects begin, and I will name this one Crash Course. Yes, I can spell. Right, I can type. Great. Width and height 1920 by 1080. That's perfect. That's all right. No need to change that. Square pixels. Yep. Frame rate 30 looks good to me. Time, we don't need 45 seconds, probably more like, I don't know, 15. And background color black. Yep, I'm happy with that. And click OK. And now we have our first composition. I think I would just make sure that fits. There we go. And what I thought we could create today is we could work on a pie chart. Because who doesn't love pie and who doesn't love charts? So if you could combine them in After Effects, that would be fantastic. Yeah. Right.
Is this called data-led infographics? Kind of.
Sure.
Sure, Maddy.
Whatever you want.
Cool. I've seen some MoGAT files, that were built in After Effects that I used in a fancy PowerPoint slideshow one day of graphs moving up and down and pie charts moving. So yeah, cool. I've seen them being used. They are.
Right. Really cool. So let's get started. And the way I'm going to do that is just by creating an ellipse. Right. So just click, hold on Command to make sure it scales from the center, Shift to make sure it's a perfect circle, and then the third finger on the spacebar to make sure we can move it. Right. And position it like this, somewhere here. Yep, that's perfect. Great. Love it. Now we have our very own, our very first ellipse. Wow, great. Of course, this would be the most boring pie chart ever. So instead, let's make some changes. First of all, I will make the first change by setting the fill to none. Make sure it's transparent, and the stroke to our color that we want. In this case, Yeah, how about a nice reddish pink? Because why not? Now, the trick comes here that we actually increase the stroke until it becomes an ellipse again. Just like this. Now you may be asking yourself, why did you do that? Couldn't you just have used the fill to fill that ellipse? Well, here's a cool trick that we can use to create our pie chart. Because, as it turns out, if you have a look over here, we can add effects. And I really want to do a full stream all about those effects, but for today, we will just focus on one, which is called trim paths. Because, spoiler alert, an ellipse is just a path that you can see here, and we can trim that, which looks, if we change the end, like this. And hopefully you can already see where we are going with this. Because this, to me, already looks a heck of a lot like a pie chart. Very boring one, only has one segment, but, you know, we're getting there. So
it's cool when it does that.
Right? We can just spend all day just doing this. Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay. So how could we add a second segment? If we want to show like a percentage of two parties, how could we do that? Well, easy, right? Just Command D for duplicate and change the color perhaps to a, I don't know, nice blue. And then we can also change the, we can change trim paths, the end. But, oh, hang on. Well, that's not quite right, is it? Yes, we certainly can have more than one color, but it looks like they are on top of each other. And that's not a great pie chart, if you ask me. Right? Mm-hmm. So how could we fix that? Well, turns out there is something we could use, which is called the offset. And what could the offset do, possibly? Well, yes, indeed, it can offset the shape, just like this.
Cool.
Now, we could now go ahead and manually align it like this, and perhaps even add a third shape if we wanted to, like perhaps some orange-yellow one, like that. And then we could go ahead and transform that again, like this.
And you know the motion you were doing, Tim, going round and back? Oliver put a good comment in the chat saying that it's a countdown timer. Could you record this through After Effects as, to make your own countdown timer?
Yeah, of course. We could animate this, and then we could have our very own timer. But that's not what we're doing today, because that's way too easy. But spoiler alert, if we have time, we will also animate this, if we have the time. Now, this looks like a perfectly ordinary pie chart to me, if you ask me, right? You can change our percentages. And you wouldn't be wrong thinking that we're done now. Like, we have a pie chart, great. But what happens if we want to change the percentage of the red shape? Well, let's try that. See what happens. Oh no. Well, that's not right. That's not how it should work. The blue shape, ideally, if you ask me, should follow the end point of the red shape. So it should look more like, oh no, see? More like this and more like that. But that's a lot of work. Every time you want to adjust one side of the shape, you always have to adjust the others. That's not great, is it? So let's not do that. Instead, let's use expressions to automatically, hopefully, align the start of the following shape to the end of the previous. Right, how can we do that? Any ideas?
No.
No, okay, no problem. That's why we're here. Okay, so let's start by just using two shapes, just to keep it simple. Because if we have two shapes, if we can do it for one, then we can do it for two. If we can do it for two, then we can do it for three, and so on. Right, let's do it. So what do we need to do to make sure the blue shape always starts where the red one ends? Well, we could somehow link the start point of the blue shape to the end point of the red, right? That should do it. So how could we possibly do that? Let's check out the settings we have here. We have start and offset. How about this? Maybe we just need to change the offset by this amount. Like if it's changed, if the size is 25%, right, that's like 90 degrees, then we just need to change this one by 90 degrees. If you can't see why, let me show you. Let me set it to 25%. There we go. Looks like a 90-degree angle to me, doesn't it? Right? So, what happens if we offset this by 90 degrees? Well, yes, indeed. It matches perfectly. So, we just need to link this offset property to the end. All right, let's do that. Let's create our first expression of the day. I hold down Option and click on the stopwatch. Let me just zoom in. Click on the stopwatch of the property we want to change. In this case, offset. Turns red, and we get some text, which we will just delete. We don't need that right now. And now we can use our favorite tool, the pick whip. Click on that, drag it down to the property we want to grab, in this case end, and release. Now, After Effects goes ahead and adds some fancy text to link those two properties. Okay, but there's an issue. This property is in percent. That one is in degrees. Ugh. So we have to do some conversion. Luckily, remember hopefully from the last stream that we just need to times that by 3.6. That's how you convert from percentage to degrees. And now, in theory, if we change the percentage of this one, look at that. The blue one changes automatically. If we make that one smaller, it still works. Right? So much easier. We can just type in, I don't know, 42%, and the blue shape follows accordingly. Right. Let's do that with a third shape, because 2 is none, we need a third one. Let's take that one and duplicate, Command or Control D. Change the color one more time. But hang on, well, that's not right. Now the yellow shape is overlapping with the blue one. How could we possibly fix that? Well, my idea would be, why don't we take the red shape, add the blue one, and then we have our endpoint, right? This endpoint is just the red one plus blue, and there we are. Okay, let's try that. Let's bring that one back in and check out the trim paths in the offset. Let's zoom in so we can all see that. And we just take that, copy, plus, and of course, we don't want shape layer 1, we want shape layer 2. And, very important, math tells us that if we add something and multiply, we have to add parentheses around the plus. Otherwise, the 3.6 would just be multiplied to the second part, and we don't want that.
So this is the kind of stream that you'd watch back and pause it as you do it and be like, right, every click. But it looks complicated with all of the formula and everything, but actually it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Pretty cool.
No, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, there we go. I just want to scale that up so we can all see it. There we go. That's better. All right. And of course, as always, if you have any questions in the chat, don't hesitate and type them in. All right.
Yeah,
cool. Now we have exactly what we wanted. We can adjust every shape. And as you can see, they all follow. Cool. So technically, that's already working. That's finished. We could use it. But I do have an issue with that. Because, we just have 3 shapes. And what if we wanted 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 or 20? Well, at some point, this expression here would get rather complicated. We would have to keep track of, all right, shape layer 1 plus shape layer 2 plus shape layer 3, and so on. Like, this would get huge. That's not what we want. We want to make it efficient. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how could we fix that? Well, the idea could be that instead of saying, get this shape layer and add it to that one, perhaps we can sort of find a sneaky way to reference other layers. Because, the yellow layer sits exactly on top of the blue one. Right here, yellow layer sits on top of the blue one. And the blue one sits on top of the red one, right? Blue one is above the red one. So perhaps we can say to After Effects, hey, why don't you just check the layer right below you and ask that? Because this layer knows where it ends, but it doesn't know where it starts. Where does it get that information from? Well, it asks the red layer. Where does that one end? So what I'm trying to say is we can employ some recursion. We can perhaps, how about this? A different example. Maddy, you want to know something about Photoshop, right? So what do? You ask, like, hey, Tim, do you know something about this feature in Photoshop? And I say, sorry, I don't know. And then you ask, hey, Tony, do you know about this feature in Photoshop? And Tony says, sorry, I don't know. And then you say, hey, Emma, do you know? And Emma says, sorry, I don't know. And then you ask, I don't know, Rufus. And Rufus says, yes, I do know. So you could ask, are all those people, just, do you know about this feature? That works, but it's very inefficient. Instead, you could ask, hey, Tim, do you know about this feature? And I say, no, but I can ask someone for you. So then I go ahead and ask, hey, Tony, do you know? And Tony says, no, but I can ask someone for you. And Tony then asks, hey, Rufus, do you know? Rufus says, yes. And then Rufus tells Tony, Tony tells me, and I tell you. And you only had to ask one person.
That does sound easier.
Right?
Much easier. Mm-hmm.
Or at a conference, if you're looking for someone, you could ask everyone, are you this person? And they all say no. Or you can ask, are you this person? No, sorry. Can you ask 2 other people for me? And then so on. And much easier. Right. So that's exactly what we're doing here. If we want to know where this shape ends, we could say, oh yeah, that one plus that one plus that one. Or we could just ask the yellow shape, hey, yellow shape, where do you end? And the yellow shape says, oh, I don't know, but I can ask blue. Blue says, oh, I don't know either, but I can ask red. Red says, oh, yes, I know. And then relays the information again until we have our final shape. Okay, let's try to do exactly that. I will again get rid of this, we don't need, and let's start just with one shape. And the idea here is that we can have a look at this category, this hashtag, this octothorpe, because below that is a number for every layer. In After Effects, every layer has a number. Starts at 1 and goes to however many layers we have. If we have 20 layers, it starts at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on.
Cool.
So, why don't we just say, hey, instead of asking shape layer 1, ask the layer below us. So layer 1, that's where we're on, plus 1. And then we have layer 2. Or if we are on layer 23, we ask layer 23 plus 1, which is 24. So 1 below the current layer. And the way to do that is very easy. There's a keyword which is called index. That's the index of the current layer. In this case, it's 1. And if we say plus 1, we get 1 plus 1, well, that's 2, aka layer 2. So layer 1 is asking layer 2. Still behaves exactly the same as we expected. But the cool thing now is that we can duplicate. And in theory, if we've done everything correctly, we should have. There we are. Oop,
Jack in the chat says, oh, this is a stream I need to rewatch. That's what I said earlier, Jack. This is one of those streams when you're like, how do we do this? There was a stream on that. And then you watch it and pause it when you need to. It's exactly.
Right.
Kirsty says it looks fantastic, by the way, Tim.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay, cool. And now we can see we have exactly what we wanted. But
so when would you use this, Tim?
Hang on. Something isn't quite right.
Oh.
I think I made a mistake somewhere. Oh, no. Sorry. Sorry, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, when would you use expressions like this? Like, I know you're doing a pie chart at the moment, but could this be used for a lot of other projects as well? I mean, obviously, this is looking at the pie chart example, but are there other ways, other use cases for this?
Well, yes. Well, of course, the pie chart usually used for pie charts. Well, you can't really, well, yeah. But what I'm trying to say with this crash course is that you can use those expressions, for example, linking between layers using indexes instead of names of the layers, but you can use that to create much more custom and much more versatile motion graphics, right?
Perfect.
So you probably can't use the pie chart exactly for something else, but you can indeed use the techniques we used to, there we go, to create your own graphics. There we go. Just slightly confused why there was music playing in the background. All right. Okay. Cool. Just need to check something really quickly because I'm not sure if that's behaving properly. I'm sure I've made a mistake somewhere. Oh, yes, I know what. Okay, all good. All good. Right. Cool. So we are almost done. Almost.
Whoa.
Because, as you can see, it's not quite working properly. Why not? Because this layer right now is starting in the wrong position. Well, that's not good. It's starting at the width of this shape. So we haven't done our math properly. That's what I'm trying to say. Let's delete it again. I was way too excited about recursion to actually do the math properly. So let's think about this again. What do we actually need to make sure this shape starts at the right position? Well, we do need the offset of the first layer, and we need the width of that layer. So to set to describe this point, we first need this one where it starts, and of course the width, right? This point here is that point plus the angle of the blue shape. That's where we are. So let's do it. Let's do it properly. Let's call this one angle equals. And we also need the width. Or let's call it shape width. Right. The angle of that first layer is just exactly what we already had. But what I forgot about that, of course, is the width of the layer. Right. Nope, sorry. My bad. Let's do it again. Let's make sure we actually properly understand, and let's do it properly, because otherwise I'm getting ahead of myself again. Okay, the angle of that layer. We need the start angle. That's the offset. Okay, offset times 3.6, and the shape width is that one. Offset and times that. All right. Cool. We have the offset and we have the width of the shape. In other words, where it starts and how wide it is. That's what we need. And now we can actually calculate what we want. In this case, we need, let's call it end angle, and it's the start plus the width. Let's zoom in so we can all see that. Right. Okay, that's looking much better. Again, now, of course, we need to pay attention to if it's a percentage or if it's actually an angle. The offset, that one is an angle, so we don't need to convert it, but the shape width, that's a percentage, so we need to convert that, times 3.6. And now, hopefully, we should be good. Let's check. Yes, that's looking great. And now, if we've done everything correctly, now we can indeed duplicate, and we should see.
Yeah, it looks like it's working.
I said we should see. Oh, no. We should see that it's working, but what we have forgotten, of course, is to reference the correct layer. We are just still referencing shape layer 1. We don't want that. We want to reference always the layer below. Remember, recursion. So index plus 1. There we are. All right. Now, let's try that a third time. And I think we have it finally. Okay.
RB in the chat says you need the correct layer.
Yes. I was still referencing the one, shape layer 1. Right. Now let's recap what we have actually done. First of all, because I think it was a lot. And second of all, so I understand what I have done.
Yes.
Okay. So we have set the offset. Let's take the blue layer. We want to know where to position the blue layer. We need an offset for that. How large is the offset? Well, the offset is exactly the start angle of the first shape plus however wide that shape is. That's how we get here. Mm-hmm. Then we wanted to add a yellow layer. Where do we know? How do we know where the yellow layer starts? Well, we asked the blue layer. But we don't know where the blue layer starts, so we asked the red layer. And that's why we need recursion. So we don't have to manually add all those shapes together. Because now it is really, really easy for me to add more shapes. I just Command D, set a color, make that perhaps a tiny bit smaller so we can add one more. And if I want another shape, I can just Command D again. Mm-hmm. And hopefully you see how easy that actually is to create many different segments without having to retype anything. It's still the exact same expression. And if you're still confused by this index plus 1 thing, let's just take any layer. I know this one. Let's open that up. Let's check. This one is asking index +1. Index is always the current layer, in this case, 3. So 3 + 1, that's layer 4. And layer 4, yes indeed, is right here. So 1 layer below. Don't be confused by the shape layer name. That's not important. We are just paying attention to this number here at the front.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, what I want to do now is to add some text. Because ideally, pie charts become 20% better if you actually know how much each segment is, like how many percent. So let's do that, right? Okay.
Cool.
Or we can perhaps we can add names, right? That would be cool too.
Yeah.
But now we have an issue again.
Oh no.
How do we position the text? Well, if I just take the text tool and, I don't know, let's say 12%. Ooh, nice and big. I like it. How do we position that?
And is there a limit to the amount of expressions that you can have, Tim?
No, as many as you want.
Fabulous. Bruce, was that?
They all come free with your After Effects subscription. You can have as many as you want.
Fabulous.
But how do we position the 12% now? Well, we could go ahead and just do it manually, There we go. And then duplicate that. And put that one here. Of course, I know it's not 12. It's maybe, 5% or whatever. And then duplicate that. And I think you see where I'm going with that. And then suddenly the client comes and says, oh, sorry, it's not 12%. That's actually 12%. Let's type it in, 12. And then you say, oh no, now I have to reposition everything. Like, okay, fine. Like that's a lot of work. And even worse, if you want to animate the chart, well, that's not great, is it? So how could we do that? Well, first of all, let's get rid of that.
I think Oliver has an answer for you. He says link the text to the end value.
Ooh, I like that.
Is that right?
That's a great idea, and that's exactly what we're about to do.
Right, Oliver. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Pro.
So, how can we define the position of the text? Well, we need to tell After Effects somehow where to place it. Let's just put the 12% back, and I think we will just make it a tiny bit smaller. That's better. All right. So how do we tell After Effects where to place the 12%? Well, traditionally, After Effects only knows about X and Y coordinates. In other words, this way and that way. That's all After Effects knows. And that's not great. Because when dealing with circles, X and Y is always very tricky. Because where exactly is that one? Like here? Oh, I don't know. Somewhere here and down there, like that. That's not great. Instead, let's use a different coordinate system. Let's use polar coordinates. How do they work? Okay. Instead of having an X and a Y coordinate, we get an angle and a distance. In other words, we could say, place this one at 90 degrees and, 200 pixels away from the center. And then we say, okay, 90 degrees, that's about here. And 200 pixels away from the center, that's about, there. Right? So we can place a text based on the angle and the distance from the center. That's much better because we can deal with angles. We know what angles are, and the distance, well, that's easy. We can just use a slider perhaps just to type that in. Much better than X and Y. So let's do that. Let's go over to the anchor point and hold down Option, tap once, and now we are at the anchor point. Now we need to define the position of that text. And first of all, so After Effects doesn't bother us anymore with error messages, I will just type in a blank expression right now. This is not really important. This is just so After Effects doesn't throw too much warnings and errors while we're working. Okay, so let's think about that. We need the angle and we need the distance, or let's call it radius. Let's be cool. Radius, which is already a keyword, so we can't call it radius. Let's call it distance. Fine. Let's keep it in simple. Distance. Okay. So we need some way to describe the angle. Something, and the distance. Something. All right. Now, if we, or perhaps in a different way, how can we calculate those? Because we need some way to get them. Well, first of all, we need our angle. Let's start with that. That's the difficult part, so let's get rid of that first.
Well, do you have to put the dots and the
no,
colon? That's just you putting space for it at the moment.
That was just to have some space. I technically don't need that. I was just like, we need to type something there. Cool. All right, let's start with the angle. So how could we calculate the angle? Well, ideally, I want to put it in the center, so like here. That's where the text should be. I don't want it at the end, because then we'd never know if it's referring to the first or the second one. I want it somewhere in the middle of the shape. And the radius, well, we can decide later where exactly it's sitting. Somewhere here, perhaps. Okay, so how could we calculate that angle? Well, we know the beginning of the shape, don't we? We know where it starts. We have placed it before, aka the offset from last time, remember? We know where it starts. And we happen to know how wide it is. So why don't we just take half of the width and put it right here? And I can see Oliver already is getting ahead of me. Yes.
I was going to say, oh my goodness.
Very similar, not quite, but very similar. Very, very similar. All right. So we know the shape. We know the angle of this one already, where it starts. And we know the width, so we can take half of it and add it to the beginning, which will end up right here. Okay, so let's reference that again. We know that this, because we want to do it recursively and we want to add as many shapes as we want, we know this is layer 1, right? We know this is layer 6. So layer 1 should reference layer 6, because, that's this one, and layer 6, that's the red one. We want to put it somewhere here. So how could we possibly reference layer 6 based on layer 1? Well, we could just add 5, right? Because 1 plus 5 happens to be 6. Okay, so let's click in here. Let's take the pick whip. Actually, let's zoom in so we can properly see that. Let's unwrap that. And we want the start, and we want we want the end, and we want the offset. There we go. All right, so let's do that. There you go. Start. The offset. And we want to add plus. No, why can't I type? Uh-oh. Okay, all good. I think After Effects is not happy. Yeah.
Oh, no.
All good. All right. Plus the end. I think I haven't saved yet. That's why After Effects probably is angry. So let's just save it. Pie chart.
Always good to save it.
Right. Didn't see any message from Annika. dear.
It's normally Annika that says save.
Yeah. So, okay. Now back to this. Angle is the offset plus the end, but like we said, we only want half of the width, so divided by 2. Okay. The end, unfortunately, like last time, is a percentage, so we need to times that by 3.6 and then divide by 2. Just to convert it into angle first from, just to convert it into an angle first and then take half of it. All right. And we also don't want to reference shape layer 1. We wanted to do it recursively, so let's instead use index, so the current index of the layer plus 5, because 1 plus 6 ends us exactly at that layer. That's where we had 5. And now let's just take that and copy that to this layer as well. And now we have our angle, hopefully. Now we just need to type in the distance. This one can just be a number. How about, I don't know, 400 pixels? That's okay. We can change that later if we want.
And
Cool.
Oliver in the chat has said, I'd put some brackets in there to tell it the order to do stuff, just to maintain his sanity.
We could do it, but since we only want to apply this multiplication and division to that layer, we should be fine. But we could do, yes. Okay. Now we just need to convert, or we just need to tell After Effects how to actually use those numbers, because our theory with the angle and the distance, that's great, but After Effects doesn't know about that. After Effects has no idea how polar coordinates work, so we have to tell After Effects how to interpret that. And here's where some math comes in, so apologies for that. If you don't know how to convert, just bing polar coordinates to Cartesian, that's how you do it. For now, because we don't have much time, I will just skip the research and the looking up. We'll just skip to the main formula, which we will need. We need x and we need y, right? Width and height. Okay. X will be distance times angle, and y will be distance also times angle. But we will have to do something to that angle. In this case, we will have to apply the sine and the cosine to the angle. Why? That's just how the maths work. So if you're interested in how that works, I encourage you to check out your favorite online encyclopedia and have a look how conversion between polar and Cartesian coordinate systems work. For now, I will just keep it simple and tell you that's how it works. There's a caveat to that, however. Because, of course, there is. There always is. First of all, After Effects has the issue that we are working in the anchor point. So we have to flip some coordinates. Usually you would say x and y, but since we're working with anchor points, we have to flip that one. So that one is y and that one is x. That's just, you have to know that, unfortunately. And since the After Effects coordinate system, the further you go down, the higher up the bigger becomes the y coordinate. Usually, if you think of a chart, if you go up, the y number goes up too, right? Up means more. In After Effects, unfortunately, it's the other way around. The further you go down, the larger becomes the y coordinate. That's just the way it is. So that's the two things you just have to know, unfortunately. All right.
Wow.
But in theory, we should now be very close to our result. Because, of course, there's another caveat, which I haven't told you yet. I know. The math functions, they expect a special format for an angle, which is called radians. They don't expect degrees, they expect radians. Degrees go from 0 to 360 degrees. That's what we all know. Radians go from 0 to 2 pi. That's just the way it is. So we have to convert that first. Luckily, converting that is very easy because After Effects has a special function for that, which is called, there we are. We just say angle is equals to degrees to radians. That's a function that After Effects has built in. We don't have to do any conversion manually. And we just take the angle again, and now it's converted. So it took the current angle in degrees, converted it to radians, saved it in the variable, and now we can use it, hopefully. And now it should, yes, look at that. It is indeed centered correctly. Now we'll just decrease the distance to, say, 300%, so it's more in the center. There we are. And now, if we've done everything correctly,
wow, Tim.
we should be able to, there we go.
Wow. Wow, yeah.
That. And the best part, since we've done this recursively, right, we haven't referenced any special layer names. We always said index plus the offset number, right? Wow. Index plus 5. What we can do now is we can take this and duplicate that. And it automatically adds it for the others. So let's say we want to change this layer.
Amazing.
You see the numbers automatically adjust. And we don't have to do anything for that. And hopefully now you can see why this, wow. Although given, I have to say, it was quite tricky to set this up, to wrap our heads around it. But now that we have this, I think you can all agree, this is much easier than having to manually position them.
Yes. No, but that's cool. Oliver says, boom, and Bruce says, very cool.
And of course, if you are interested, because I know this was a lot, and I know I also made some mistakes. Even I have to sometimes really think about it, what I'm doing, especially when I'm doing a live stream.
Pressure.
If you're interested, I can post this After Effects project file into the Discord. Let me know if you would like to see that. All right, so now let's get to the fun part. Finally, we did all the hard work. Let's bring some life into it. First of all, I don't really want to manually change all those percentages because I can't be bothered. So let's delete all of them again.
And Sean and Kirsty would love to see this linked in Discord. Please, Tim.
All right. Ooh, what's going on here? Oh, I think I know what's happening. I think I've deleted the wrong layer. Oh, no. Yeah, I've deleted... Oh, unfortunately, I have deleted the yellow one. That wasn't right. I want to delete that one, that one, that one, and that one. Okay, there we are. Let's quickly change the percentage to make sure it actually matches whatever the percentage of the current shape is. Luckily, that's very easy because we can just change the source text, holding down Option, and dragging it down to end, because we know this one is 14%, so luckily we can just take this one. No need to convert anything, he says. So, end. And of course, we don't want to reference the specific layer name. We want to say index plus 5. 5, by the way, because we happen to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. If we wanted to have more, we would have to change this number. Right? But for now we have 5. And now we already have our 14. Perhaps we want the percent at the end. So we can just say plus percent. There we go. And now if I actually change the percentage, you will see the number changes as well.
Yeah. So this is cool. It's about setting up the work before you get to all the pretty stuff, isn't it? It's setting up the
yes.
all of the
and
back
the cool
end.
thing, the cool thing, of course, is if you create, say, a motion graphics template, you would never have to touch those expressions ever again. You could just use this in Premiere, set all the percentages, the colors perhaps even, and you're done. You just have to set this up once and never again.
Yeah, so this is what I was saying at the start of the stream, that I've bought Moga templates like this, where all I've had to do is just edit the percentage, and it's done it all for me. So that's, yeah,
And now
that's
we
such a
know how
use
to
for
do
it.
it.
And now you know
Right.
how to do it. Exactly.
So cool. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very cool.
Now let's add some animation.
Yes.
Luckily, it's really easy. Yes.
Brilliant.
So,
Yeah.
because I don't want to go into all those menus all the time, like say I want to change the percentage of this layer, I don't want to always have to, contents, trim path, and okay, well, that's a lot of work. Well, I don't like that. So instead, let's create some expression controls, which will make it much easier for us to change. So I will just add a new layer. We will just use a null object, doesn't matter. We just need a new layer. And in the effect controls, I will add under effects, we have something called expression controls. There we are. And in there we have a slider. Okay, let's take that. And now we can take, like, say, for example, this one, and parent the end to that slider. Okay. Look at that. Oh, that's a lot of percent. I think we need to chop that off, but now I can control the percentage using this slider. And of course, we could do this for all the other layers as well. But I think for now, we just want to chop off the end of that percentage because we don't really need that. So let's quickly go in here. Zoom out just a bit so we can see what's going on. And we will just say, let's cut that and say math.round. There we go.
Yeah. Oliver's like, we need some
that's
rounding
better.
in the maths.
Yeah,
Oliver,
and
I
now
get it.
that's better, right? I think we can all agree.
Fabulous. Yeah.
Okay. And now, like I said, we could do this for all the other layers. Let's just keep it for time's sake because we only have 3 minutes. Let's keep it at 1, and let's just animate that one by clicking the stopwatch. Let's start, I don't know, at 5%, whatever. Go a bit forward, say 2 seconds, and let's change it to 22%, because why not? And now, if I go back and hit play, yes, look at that.
Very good. Very
It
cool.
indeed changes.
We've done all
And
of this in an hour.
the stepping, by the way, just comes in because we have rounded this one. Normally, what a better idea I think would be is instead of rounding the end percentage, I think instead we should do this at the text level. So let's go to the text and let's round that one here, math.round. And now it should be smoother. Yes, there we are. Much better.
Wow. Bruce says, bravo, Tim.
And then we could ease
So good.
this to make sure it looks better by using the F9 key.
Wow.
And then, ta-da! Right? So cool. And of course, the best part now is we can customize it however we want. Let's say, ooh, I'm not so keen on that stroke thickness. How about something like that? Maybe. Like diagram, a chart like that.
Ooh, very cool.
The cool thing, of course, is now everything still works.
All charts are like that these days. Just like that. That's like the new chart. Donut chart, Oliver says. Yes,
Yes.
Oliver. It is, isn't it? That looks
And
so
of
good.
course, if I just change something real quick, so let's say I add another slider to this, and we call that one distance. And I parent the distance of that text, which is under the transform down here. Remember where we... Uh-oh. I think the stream changed.
The stream stopped.
What?
The stream just cut. It just cut. It just stopped.
Well, that's not how it's supposed to work. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, if you're still watching on YouTube, then let's just finish this. It's okay. We're still live. What I wanted to do is, instead of saying distance is just this boring old fixed number, yes, of course, we can change it. Parent that. Bring all the text back. And now...
This stuff looks so good.
Yes, indeed, we can also change the distance like that.
Cool.
Let's say one here, or perhaps on the outside. There we go. And of course, everything still works.
Amazing. Well, we'll share it in the Discord so that people can have a play, have a look.
Yes.
That's the best way. I know that you had a couple of requests from people to share it in there. And we've got a couple of great streams coming up this week, right? We've got, is it Rachel and Karina back tomorrow?
Yes, it is. And they are working on illustrating a scarf.
Oh, cool. Cool. Nice. So, yeah, they're doing that. And then I think we've got Sophia on Wednesday.
Sophia and Tony. Wow. And Tony will be doing a live tutorial for Sophia.
Amazing. Great. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you all tomorrow, same time at Behance. Have a great day.
Bye.